Welcome to Heartspeak Podcast, episode 298, welcoming angels, divas and fairies. Well, hello there, wherever you are in the world. It's good to be back with you. And yes, we're moving into the world of the supernatural, the nature kingdoms, a world that's very familiar to me and has been all my life. I wonder how many of you have an awareness of the spirits that are in the forests, in the trees, in the streams, in the rocks. And these energies are there to cooperate with us, work with us. And I want to describe how they come to be and where we could perhaps find a way of being more cooperative with them. And this came about because last week I mentioned the Findhorn Foundation and their wonderful work. And it reminded me of my own experiences with Findhorn. And I thought back, when did I first learn about Findhorn? And it was in the early 1980s when I was sitting in a meeting, a seminar about psychology. And this lovely lady, who I can't even remember who she was, just mentioned the Findhorn books to me. I had never heard about it, this centre that is north of Inverness in Scotland. And without the internet, I had to find the books associated with it. And almost 1 or 2 months later, I had signed up to be part of the introductory courses they run. That introductory week totally blew my mind. And the beauty of it was that not only did I get to work in the garden, which I loved, but also they brought forward all these wonderful creative ways of knowing ourselves. It would be lovely to see more of centers like this in the world. So sometimes we'd be working with clay, sometimes we'd be working with artwork, sometimes we'd be working with music, sometimes we'd be working with dance. It was just such a great way of meeting myself, not about just listening to what I had to say, but finding myself through my creations. And at the same time, I found time, and this is part of their project during the introductory week, that you either work in the kitchens or in the house or in the gardens, and I was in the gardens. And I learned about how the founders of this place, and one of them is Dorothy McLean, whose book I'm rereading, Hearing the Angels Sing, and how Dorothy McLean was a psychic, and she came together with Eileen and Peter Caddy, and they worked originally, they lived in a caravan, which is why Findhorn was often known for its caravans. But they lived in a caravan and they were literally living on sand dunes up in that north of Scotland. But they had this plan to create a garden, a vegetable garden, a flower garden. And it was through Dorothy McLean's psychic abilities and finding ways of talking to what she called the landscape angel, that these angels, these divas, these nature spirits started to educate her and give her advice as to how to make this sand into a nutritious place for vegetables, a place of abundance, to find fertilization in this land. And they were so successful that they grew these huge marrows, which is what they were known for. And even the Soil Association of Great Britain couldn't understand how they'd achieved this. And it was by asking the land, what do we need to do to help you to be more fruitful? How to bring this abundance to everybody? And this was working with the nature spirits. The nature spirits said, well, if you bring us more seaweed, or you put these minerals into the soil, or you take that out of the soil, we can all enjoy the fruitfulness of the vital force of the universe flowing into this land, into the food. You can eat the food. We can all be happy because we're all feeling this universal love flowing through us. And I think that this idea that was still very, very present and is still present, but I could feel it when I was in the gardens way back, as I say, in the middle of the 1980s. And I learned so much. I learned that you never break something off a tree or off a plant. You always use scissors or cutters. And you can use cutters especially that are copper or silver or gold, because they're much more gentle to the tree. So you never just pick plants and take them into your home. You ask, please, may I take the beautiful plants that you have or the beautiful flowers and bring them into my home? And you never move a tree from one place to another or a shrub. You say, is it okay if we move? And you give reasons. It's okay. The plant isn't saying, no, that's the wrong thing to do. But when we ask permission, it's more able to help us to move. And you're saying, now, how can I help you to root into this new place? So it isn't about, oh, you shouldn't cut a tree down or take a plant out. It's more when you ask permission and say, I'm doing this because the plant's very happy to go along with you. And then it was the true of stones or shells. I know that many of you may like picking up stones or shells and taking them home. But it's also very important for us to ask the nature spirits within those shells or that are looking after those shells, will you come home with me? Because you're literally bringing a little nature spirit with you when you do that. And the spirit might say, well, actually, no, I actually need to be here on the beach, or I need to be here with these stones. This is my place. And I've seen many stones that have been taken, let's say, from a megalithic site that is 5,000 years old and placed into the wall of a house. And you wonder why the house is not as happy as it could be, because this one stone is saying, nobody asked me. Asking is one way of doing this. And when you ask, you need to make sure that our minds are clear so we don't just hear what we want to hear, because sometimes the tree or the rock or whatever will say, no, I'm not talking to you. No, I don't want to go with you. And it's a lovely story that I think I've shared before, but my friend who passed over, my friend who's a kahuna, Makua, used to tell of a story where he was asked to go and place a stone from Hawaii into the foundations of a temple, a building, a sacred space that was in, I think, Tahiti. So he took himself all the way there by canoe, placed his stone down there, went all the way back. And a few months later, he got these very acute telephone calls saying, please, please, please come and move your stone. And he said, why? He said, we have just moved the foundations a little bit, but your stone refuses to move. And it keeps just making everybody fly off the stone, even if they try and touch it. So he had to go all the way back and move his stone 1 inch. And then the stone was happy, everybody was happy. So everything has a life force in it, or everything has the potential of being a life force. And I want to try and help you to understand how this works using the power of the angels and the divas. So you may have been brought up with archangels or angels, and you know there's a sort of hierarchical system, cherubims, seraphims, I never know quite how they all will line up. But the diva kingdom is very similar, and I would only say they're probably the same thing. So a diva and an angel are the architects of creative intelligence coming into manifestation. So here you have the divine mind, the divine intelligence, and the archangels, angels, cherubims, divas. At that level, they are the ones who take the idea and create a plan. Okay, this is how it's going to happen. And they are the ones that are carrying the energy of that plan. So it's what they do is they design different shapes, and that shape is holding a vibration, an energy that will eventually lead into manifestation. So when you want to build something, you need to ask the angel or the diva, again, you can use whatever word you want, will you bring me the energy, what I want to try and say, not just the plan, but the energized plan. Will you give me the energy of that energized plan in order to create, let's say, a garden you want to create, or you want to decorate a room? I'm trying to say is that you need to ask for the energy to enter into your garden, or enter into your house, or enter into your body if you want to bring health into your body. So you're saying to the angel or the diva, will you please, I would like to, I don't know, I want to feel more healthy. You're asking the diva of health to enter into your body so that you may feel this health. And that's why we go back to angels, or we could say goddesses or gods, deities generally. People will often take prayers or gifts to a tree or to a well, and they'll say, here's my prayer, will you make this person better? Or will you bring abundance to my fields? So this is why people have prayed. It's not praying in the hope that it will happen, but you're actually asking the diva of, or the angel of health, to enter into this body or enter into the person that you care for. So that's why we've often seen people praying to different angels. So what we understand that, again, I want you to understand that angelic energy or diva energy is really not limited to I'm only doing health or I'm only doing this. But when we call upon a certain intention to happen, that energy will collect together because this is what it understands you need. So one could say that this angelic energy or this diva energy is not limited to I can only do this, but it will take on a form that you will then accept as helping you. Oh, I'm going to be the angel of health today. But then it isn't limited to that. And I think that's maybe where angels in certain religions have got caught up in being told this is what you have to do, this one thing. They don't want to be limited, but they're very willing to take on a shape that is the angel of health, and then they're dissolved back into the wholeness again. And the diva kingdoms does the same. It says, okay, I can help in creating this garden, but I don't want to be limited by this. But it will take on a form that will help you to understand this. I hope that makes sense. So it's good to call on your angels or your divas, whichever you want to work with, but you're asking them with a particular intention. This is what I plan to do. So here you have a plan, for instance, to say, okay, I want more health into my body. Well, okay, so I'm going to call on the divas of my body. So this is the one that oversees the way in which my body works. But you also have little nature spirits who are busy organizing the health of your liver or the health of your heart. And what they're doing is working with the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water. And they're saying, okay, how much earth, how much air, how much fire, how much water do we need in her liver to make her healthy? So we have an overall plan of what a liver is and what its function is, held by the diva, but it's our little nature spirits or elementals who do the work, you could say, to make sure it all keeps functioning. So when you have got a part of the body that's not working well, you want to call on all of that. I want to call on the blueprint of Christine's body, and then I want to ask the nature spirits of my liver to work with me and to bring back health, and they will do that. And this is why I've had joy of working with body talk, as I call it, where I'll talk to the parts of the body and say, what do you need from Christine? What do you need? Not it's Christine's mind talking. It's like, okay, little nature spirits of the liver, what do we need to supply you with so that you can become healthy again? And sometimes I like to suggest that you write a little poem. If my liver could speak to me today, it would say, and let it talk to you. What do you need? Oh, I need you to slow down. I need you to eat better food. I need you to take time for the digestion, whatever. And the body is not judging you. It's your friend. And so all these little nature spirits in you are all trying to work really hard to make sure that everybody works in harmony. So in this world where I've come right into the body, but we could go out again, the diva kingdoms, the angelic kingdoms are hierarchical. As I say, you could come down through the archangels, the angels, etc. But they don't work in a hierarchy like we understand it. You know, this is, I'm the better and you lot below are not so good. And I kind of want to give it an analogy of like my hand. Let's say I had a diva, an angel of my hand, who is the kind of overseer of how my hand works. And then there are little nature spirits that work with each finger. But the nature spirits are not wanting not to be part of the hand. And this is maybe something we have so much difficulty understanding, is divine order, divine laws, the laws of the cosmos. And basically, they all work together to bring harmony, peace, love. And so the hand is, of course, only part of the whole, but my hand is saying, I'm part of the whole, and I'm passing down this message of what would it be like to have a harmonic hand, a peaceful hand. And the finger says, well, yeah, I'm an individual, but I don't want to do anything that is not in harmony with the whole. Why would I? So your finger can, waggle itself on its own, but it still is taking account of, is this in harmony with the whole hand? And this is what the angelic diva kingdoms cannot understand of us. They say, yeah, you have free will, just like the finger can wiggle. But why would you do something that is not in harmony with the whole? And that, I believe, is the message that the diva kingdoms are trying to help us to understand. What is the bigger plan, we might call it? And it's not somebody telling you what to do. It's about love. How can I become more and more connected to my wholeness? And why would we do something that doesn't do that? Because it's so loving and so beautiful when we do that. So when we are working with the diva kingdoms, we need to be understanding that they're not ordering us to do something. They're giving us choice. They're trying to help us to understand that wholeness, but it still comes in the way of saying, I'll give you the energy for this to happen. So here we are, perhaps in a life force. So here, what I've come to understand is that there are many images, life forms, or I should say life forms that are there for us to bring life into. And that's why I'm getting a little confused there. But let's say in our imagination, we say, oh, I know what a fairy looks like. We've seen images of it. So a light being, which I will call a nature spirit for this name, this little light spirit says, okay, I wouldn't mind being a fairy. So what it asks the diva is, please give me the energy, the blueprint of a diva, of a fairy, so I can go in and take on the form of being a fairy. And so that then you say, wow, I saw a fairy. Well, you did, but actually what you saw was a light spirit taking on a form that you recognize. At the same time, that light spirit can say, okay, fed up of being a fairy, and disappear back through the portal, through the wormhole that it's come through, and just become a light being again. So maybe I give another analogy, which would be a tree. So you say, okay, I fancy being a tree. So this light spirit asks the diva, can you create an energy, which we call the etheric body, so that I can take on the form of a tree? So that light spirit comes through, it becomes a tree, and you can feel the vibrancy of that tree being alive, because that little light spirit is giving the life force into that tree. So whatever you eat of that tree or the blossoms you enjoy, you literally are feeling the universal life force fill you. But once that life force has said, okay, I'm done with being a tree, it will literally take out the life force from that tree, pass back through the etheric body, through the portal, and just become a life force again. It says, I've done being tree. And what then happens is we end up seeing a tree and we go, even though this tree is part of a forest, I don't feel any life force in it. Or I'm eating fruit from that tree or fruit from that garden, but there's no life force in it. So the presence of these light beings within our food, within our world, literally feeds us with the life force of the universe. at the same time, we're doing the same thing. When I'm enjoying what I'm doing and I'm asking my inner diva, we might call it the soul, to give me the energy to do something, and I'm passionate about that, I bring my life force into whatever I'm doing. And then when I finish doing it, I dissolve back again and say, okay, I finished doing that. Does that make sense? You do what you're passionate about, what you enjoy, but when you've learned everything you can from it, you withdraw your energy from it and you go back and do something else. So this ability to experience ourselves both as divas who can create life, and we create life by letting that life force work through us, and also experiencing the nature kingdoms, being able to feed us with those things, is really important. So when we're working with the light spirits, and I'll call them fairies for what it's worth, they are providing us with gifts of how to bring more fruitfulness to our lives, not just in our gardens, but how do I make this more pleasurable? And a little life spirit will say, hey, I'll show you the way. And that's what we believe that these little elementals want to do. They want to say, how do I bring this more alive? And sometimes they need our help. For instance, you may have a stream running through near you, but the stream's got a little bogged up. And the water spirits are saying to you, look, I really want to bring this life force back to this stream, but I can't do it because I can't lift that stone that fell into the water or that tree. So they're asking us as humans, could you just lift that? Ah, now I can flow. So it is totally about cooperation. We have skills, certainly physical ones, but we also have intelligence skills that can work with the land. And then we can work with the spirits who are saying, hey, I'll give this if you could do that for me. No, don't plant that tree there because it won't get any shade. Can you lift it up and put it here? So our ability to work with everything in nature is the way in which we all grow together. We all fulfill each other's needs. And I'm very aware that without a life force in something, it has no purpose. And that's why I have such a problem with something that's been born in a laboratory or in a factory that has never touched into the earth. I'm not convinced that that life force is present in a factory. Because why would a light spirit want to enter into something in a factory? Not because you can't invite it there, it would go there, but that is no longer in harmony with the universal order. Does that make sense? So if growing something in a laboratory or in a factory is part of the universal plan, then light spirits will go there. But what I've come to understand from the nature spirits, they're saying, this is not part of the bigger plan. This is a destructive force. This is not a force that will grow and evolve and help us all. And when we're doing anything that is no longer in harmony with our larger story, our bigger story, the light forces, whether they're in our body or in our world around us, will just pull away the vital force from that place. So something that lacks energy is because the spirits are saying, no, this is not going anywhere. This is a destructive way of doing something. This is not in harmony with the big plan. We're going to withdraw the vital force. Sometimes that happens to our bodies. Sometimes our bodies are no longer willing to provide us with a vehicle if we're not working in harmony with them. So any part of our world can choose to withdraw the vital force. We can choose to withdraw it from a situation we're in. But when that happens, that energy no longer can exist. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes. So I leave you with the idea of going out into the woods, going out to the water, going out to the stream, understanding that the Diva Kingdom is there alongside us. It will evolve on its own rate. And I can tell you when humans aren't around, it will just continue to flourish because we're no longer getting in its way, because there are things that we are doing are not in harmony with it. But when you're out there in nature, asked to speak to, first of all, the guardian of the whole area, what Dorothy McLean calls the landscape angel. Can I enter into this space? Ask, may I enter this space? I come with love and peace and joy. Then you might go to a particular forest and you say, can I speak to the guardian of this forest? Then the guardian, let's say, of a particular type of tree. And then you'll be taken to trees and say, can I speak to the elemental or the nature spirit that lives with this tree or that's helping this tree grow? And always do it with humility and saying, is there something I can do to help? Is there some way in which we can work together in cooperation? And they are, as in my experience, so lighthearted, so full of love. So they're not caught up in the seriousness. So if something doesn't work, they'll try something else. They just won't put energy into what doesn't work anymore. And so when you're out there, be lighthearted, be like a child. The fairies, the elves, they show themselves in their own unique way, which often may just be your hair moving, or a brush on your skin, or a little laughter you hear, or the trees rustling. So be aware they often use the different elements to get your attention. And that might just be all you need, is that joy of being in touch with them. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. I hope it excites you. Understand that we are all part of this huge plan. We are all angelically taken care of, diva taken care of. But at the largest level, we are creators who are working with this beautiful energy that comes from deep within the heart of the universe. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the HeartSpeak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Please check out all HeartSpeak episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. HeartSpeak is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Tumblr, and now playing on Amazon Music and iHeart Radio. You can also watch the archive podcast on Christine's channel, on YouTube, and now on Rumble. Connect with Christine on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook group, The Great Mother Calling. Do share with family, friends, colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of HeartSpeak.